Welcome back to MidPoint, everybody. We have been following all day long what has been happening in Ferguson, Missouri after the grand jury indictment, failure to indict, I should say, last night. We, of course, have been watching the various press conferences and what has been happening. We want to take a moment here and just sort of pull everything back down for a moment, because in all of this and all the various coverages that we have seen and a lot of the interviews that we are doing, we continue to hear a lot of opinions based on what we heard, what we didn't hear, and what we supposedly wanted to hear in so many ways. What is happening now is the city is still trying to put itself back together. The police are trying to make sure that they get some kind of order in Ferguson. We have had no other reports of any sort of violence at this time. But again, it is coming down to another evening in Ferguson, Missouri, and there are still so many questions as to why this decision came out as it did, why there was no police protection, and of course we have seen the Reverend Al Sharpton and others today who have had their say about the lack of an indictment. Now we need to turn to something that is, and someone who knows fully well what it is like in these trying circumstances, to try and bring everybody together. Because we want to welcome back to MidPoint one who grew up learning the messages from a gentleman named Dr. Martin Luther King. His niece, Alveda King, joins us today. Dr. King, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, and thank you for letting me speak to you during these troubled times, but I'm praying that hope will yet arise.
Let me ask you first and foremost, because I'm sure you, like everybody else, watched the grand jury proceeding, the result that came out last night. From what you have seen, do you feel justice was done?
I had just left St. Louis a few hours before that time of the decision. I had been with preachers and leaders and people praying all that night before. I believe that human justice, of course, has been realized by a grand jury of peers of Michael Brown and Darren Wilson. Black jurors, white jurors, I guess blended in age and gender and all of that. So a jury of peers appears to have decided that there was going to be some reasonable doubt based on everything that they had heard. So that was not a racist decision. I mean, if you can admit that there were black folks and white folks on that grand jury, it's not a racist decision.
How then do we as a people, you, me, and others, try to get this past the point of it being a conspiracy, a fix, a racial incident where people who will say, and Reverend Sharpton and so many others, the attorneys have all said that this is a racial issue. How do we get past it?
Well, you know, I'm sitting here, and as I told you, I'm reading 1 Peter 3:9 in the Bible. Don't repay evil for evil. Don't retaliate with insults when people insult you. Instead, pay them back with a blessing. Now, there's a mitigating conversation, and that I don't understand it. And Reverend Sharpton still won't answer this, even though he lives in Chicago. Okay, when a white officer shoots a black person, that's racism. When it's black on black crime, what is it? They won't answer that. So we're one human race anyway. Everybody has one blood, and we can get transfusions no matter what our skin color is. My daddy, A.D. King, told me I can't hate white people when my uncle was killed. I said, I want to blame somebody. He said, you know, white people march with us, pray with us, die with us. You can't hate white people, you see. So I don't think Reverend Sharpton remembers that when he thinks back to my daddy being beat up on that Selma Bridge along with the white folks. I don't think he remembers that.
I know that you're not a person who hates, so I'm not going to ask if you hate it, but certainly when you see Al Sharpton standing there, and he is the face of what goes on in Ferguson at this point, how dismayed are you as an African American?
I'm so dismayed because God is love. Martin Luther King Jr. promoted love. My daddy, A.D. King, did. They gave their lives for the love of a beloved community and the love of God. And so to divide like that, and you know, you can go in and stir up violence and then say you're the solution to the violence. Well, if you're going to stir it up, how are you going to solve it? I don't get that one. I don't understand.
Dr. King, I'm going to ask you to stand by for just a couple minutes. We have to take a break because I want to come back, talk to you a little bit more, not only about what happened, but certainly about some of the lessons of history. So please hold on with us just a few moments. Stay with us here on MidPoint. When we come back, Dr. Alveda King, we are going to look back a little into history here and perhaps see why we're failing to learn some certain lessons. It's coming up right here on MidPoint.